Hello and welcome to this presentation delivered on behalf of the National Apprenticeship Service. My name is Matt and I'm going to take you through a quick whistle-stop tour of what an apprenticeship is today. So an apprenticeship is a blend of working and learning. The apprentice will work 80% of the time with a real employer and will gain real work experience, but they'll also be studying 20% of the time and working towards a qualification that's directly related to the job that they're doing. So that means everything the apprentice learns as part of that study can be put into practice immediately with the employer. This is a real job with a real employer, whether that's an employer that's trying to make a profit or provide a service to the local community. The apprentice is a fully fledged member of staff of that business. They receive a contract of employment, tells them how many hours they got to do, how many holidays they get, and crucially how much they get paid, amongst other things. Apprentices do receive a salary, and the salary they receive reflects 100% of their time, not just the 80% they're working with the employer. So effectively, the employer covers that 20% of study time as well. There is a minimum salary for apprentices, which is currently £3.30 per hour. That doesn't mean that if you do an apprenticeship, that's how much you will get paid, but it's there to protect the apprentice from getting paid any less. Generally, salaries in Greater Manchester are a lot stronger than that. I see starting salaries for Year 11 school leavers normally between about £8,000 and £12,000, and for Year 13 college or sixth form leavers between sort of £14,000 and £16,000. Apprenticeships are for everyone, as I've just explained. You can leave school at the end of Year 11 and move into an apprenticeship at that point instead of going to college or sixth form, or you can go to college in sixth form and move into an apprenticeship at the end of Year 13 instead of going to university full time. In fact, there's no upper age limit. Myself or you as a parent could actually do an apprenticeship right now if you were looking to develop a new set of skills to enhance an existing career, or looking to change career completely and then gaining a whole new set of skills for a new sector. In all cases, there are no fees to pay towards the cost of the apprenticeship. So the apprentice spends 80% of the time with the employer. The employer will give them tasks and activities that enable them to develop the technical skills they need for a job, and also gain those softer employability skills that perhaps ourselves we take for granted. So the resilience, the team working, the time management, things like that. What employers generally can't do is they're not teachers, they're not tutors. So what we need is an apprenticeship training provider to deliver that training. That could be a college, an independent training provider, or even a university. And the role of that training provider is to spend about 20% of the time delivering the teaching and learning that's required. So that could take place in the classroom, where the apprentice goes to work 4 days a week and attends the training provider premises 1 day a week. How you get your 20%, or it could be what we call workplace learning blended with online learning. So the apprentice would receive occasional visits from the training provider. It would also be in touch via email and Zoom and phone calls as well, but there'd be a lot of self-study during on that method as well, where the apprentice would be spending 20% of the time sort of studying in the workplace, but working specifically on their apprenticeship qualification, not doing the work for the employer. There are nearly 600 different types of apprenticeships out there, so these 15 examples are barely the tip of the iceberg. All those traditional apprenticeships you're thinking of when you think of an apprenticeship, so your car mechanic or your childcare assistant or your hairdresser, those apprenticeships, they all still exist. They're well-established routes into long and successful careers. The only changes that have been made are the qualifications are updated to make sure they reflect modern working practices. Then you've got jobs such as accountancy, or where perhaps in the past you might have had to pay for a commercial qualification to enable you to practice being an accountant. Well, now those qualifications are wrapped up in the apprenticeship. You've got jobs such as business admin or customer service or front of house hospitality roles, where in the past there weren't any qualifications. Well, now they are. They're wrapped into the apprenticeship. And then crucially, you've also got jobs that historically required you to go and do a full-time degree to gain the necessary qualification to be able to do that job. Now you can do them as a degree apprenticeship, which I'll come to shortly. But again, that opens up a pathway for apprenticeships. I'm talking about things like civil engineering, quantity surveying. There's a solicitor degree apprenticeship, to name but a few. These logos represent some of the very large employers who recruit apprentices from schools and colleges across Greater Manchester. They're likely to recruit them into multiple different departments across those businesses. What you can't see here is all the smaller employers who also recruit apprentices. So if these large employers take on sort of 40, 60, 80 apprentices every year, the smaller businesses who might only take on 1 or 2 every year, or 1 every other year, depending upon their business need. But the actual apprenticeship qualification, if it's the same standard, let's say business administration, which is quite a common one, that's the same qualification irrespective of the size of the business. The work experience itself might be a little bit different. Some young people might prefer to work for a smaller family-run business. Some might prefer to work for a large corporation. They have that choice with apprenticeships. It's worth drawing a comparison between the levels of apprenticeships and school and college qualifications that you may be more familiar with. The intermediate apprenticeship, in terms of how challenging it is to achieve the qualification, is the equivalent of gaining 5 GCSEs at grade 4 and above, or the old grade C and above. Advanced apprenticeships are equivalent to 2 A levels or a BTEC at level 3 or the new T levels. Higher apprenticeships operate between levels 4 and 7, so level 4 HNC, level 5 HND, also known as foundation degree, level 6 full degree, level 7 master's degree. As you can see on the right, we also have degree apprenticeships specifically at level 6 and 7. The difference between a degree apprenticeship at level 6 and a higher apprenticeship at level 6 is on the degree apprenticeship, the apprentice gains a degree. On the higher apprenticeship, what they gain is equivalent to a degree, but not an actual degree. From an employer's perspective, the level of qualification is perhaps more important than what the qualification specifically is. So they're not too bothered whether it's a degree or not. But I appreciate from a young person's perspective, those degree apprenticeships might be a bit more of a target than perhaps a higher apprenticeship at level 6. So moving on to degree apprenticeships briefly, it's just worth spending a little bit of time on these as they are relatively new. They're a part-time degree. The apprentice works 80% of the time, studies 20% of the time, but the 20% of study has to be with a university. There's around 80 to 90 universities in England who deliver these at the moment, and they've got some financial benefits. Starting salaries from what I'm seeing in Greater Manchester, as I said, between about £14,000 and £16,000. We do see some outliers either side. Occasionally I see salaries in the low 20,000s. The other financial benefit is you don't pay any university tuition fees on a degree apprenticeship. The employer pays those for the apprentice, so the apprentice doesn't need to take out a student loan. They often take longer, between 4 and 6 years, but whilst that seems like a long time, they're gaining all that work experience, have access to the same university facilities and NUS, National Student Union of Student discounts. The apprentice and parents can still go to the graduation ceremony at the end, but best of all, I'll never see guaranteed a job at the end of an apprenticeship, but if I'm an employer that's paid tuition fees and salary and invested time in developing that apprentice in my workplace, I'm not going to want to let them go at the end of that degree apprenticeship. They're a highly valuable asset to my business. I'm going to want to retain them. In terms of looking for opportunities, you can target both live vacancies that employers are advertising, but you can also target some of the training providers. So looking at employers first, one starting point is the government's Find an Apprenticeship website, which features multiple live apprenticeship vacancies. A young person can search on there by putting in their home postcode, putting in the type of job they're interested in, determining how far they like to travel, and it'll filter out those live vacancies. Some of those live vacancies will be to start in April or May. Some of them will be specifically targeted at school and college leavers to start next August, next September. Other places to look for further information. The best one to go at is the amazing apprenticeships website. There's a whole suite of resources on there, some aimed at students, some aimed at parents, some aimed at teachers. To be honest, all of them are valuable to all 3 of those stakeholders anyway, so it's certainly worth spending perhaps 10-15 minutes looking through some of those resources, and that may be able to answer any other questions you might have that I couldn't cover today. Thank you very much for listening. If you do have any questions, I would always recommend contacting your child's school careers advisor in school. 99% of the time they're going to be able to answer any questions that you have over apprenticeships. Thank you very much and goodbye.